Marvel Snap has a problem. Let's talk about it. Alright, so if you're a Marvel Snap player, which I'm sure you are if you're watching this video, as well as if you've kept up with the content, general discourse, and specifically the video that was released today or yesterday, depending on when this video goes live, by Marvel Snap Zone, a website that I have written for and I've worked with, and Howling Minds came out with a video, and it's a very good one, going over the overall idea of why are people constantly asking for nerfs, asking for second ender to take action on cards that are just too strong. Citing things like, of course, Leader dominated the meta. Everyone's playing Leader. Everyone hates that card. It gets nerfed. Then you see Zabu, Surfer dominating the meta. They get hit. Now we're in a position of Lockjaw Thanos deck. People complaining that Thanos is too strong, even though he just got a buff, which is really funny. But specifically the stones and the interaction with the Lockjaw and even Quinjet being the thing that sets it apart from other decks. Then, of course, there's Shuri, doubling cards like Red Skull, getting 30 power, and then even dropping Taskmaster after that to get 30 power in two different lanes is very difficult to beat unless your opponent has Shang-Chi. Of course, these are things that people are going to complain about. And it got me thinking, because I was actually considering making a video on this topic last week, and I was starting to record. I had some some takes and things like that, and I couldn't quite get the structure down how I wanted it and how to actually invoke my feelings on the entire topic, so I scrapped it. But watching that video by Marvel Snap Zone with Howling Minds got me thinking, and I had this epiphany. There's a solution to all of these problems without having too much nerfing in the game. So let's go back a little bit. I come from playing Magic the Gathering primarily as my main source of content, working with playingmtg.com and being the host of the Pioneer Perspective, a podcast all about the Pioneer format in Magic the Gathering. There's been that discourse in that game that I come from as well. Even Yu-Gi-Oh! Back when I played that competitively had that and still does today. Magic the Gathering is also no stranger to this kind of discourse. There are always going to be people complaining about various different cards and strategies, saying that they're too good, and often it just comes down to, I lost to X card, it made me feel bad, please get rid of it because it hurts my deck. But there is something that Magic has that can alleviate a lot of the pain that players go through when they have these cards that they so vehemently hate. Best of 3 and best of 1 formats. Specifically looking at the client Magic Arena, you have various different formats being Explorer, Standard, Brawl, and Historic. These are all formats that vary differently in terms of card pools and things like that, which I do actually think that Marvel Snap should go in the direction of creating different formats. Maybe it's pool 1 only, pool 2 only, etc., etc. That could be interesting and give people a break from the monotony of the ladder. Because that's what it comes down to. Marvel Snap has a singular way to play, and that sucks. Playing the same type of format over and over and over and over and over again, you are going to, as you climb the ladder, it's just the way the game works and how any competitive game works, you're going to experience the same meta over and over again. So of course, when you're playing the same meta over and over again, it's not going to be that enjoyable because you're seeing the same things, a la Lockjaw Thanos, Shuri Zero, doesn't matter what the flavor of the week is, you're going to see it constantly, and that's going to be not fun. So there are two ways you can fix this when it comes to Marvel Snap. One, introduce different formats to the game. Different formats can mean different balancing. You can even introduce ban lists to vary the differentiating factors of these formats, but I doubt there's going to be anything super crazy. And the reason I say banning rather than adjusting cards like we see currently is because if you do introduce multiple formats, ways to play, that are primarily all pool 1 for one format, pool 2, pool 3, however they want to form that format, you don't want them to create balance changes of the cards themselves just because they perform well in format X when they don't perform well in formats Y and Z. That just is bad balancing. and you don't want to upset players like that. So that's where you can have bans come in. Now, if you don't do the format approach, the one that I'm going to be shouting from the rooftops and have been for a little while now, best of 3 formats. This doesn't mean different card pools. This simply means best of 3 games. And I understand that people want to play Snap to have a faster paced games as part of the appeal of the game. You can still keep best of 1. Look at Magic Arena. They have both best of 1 ladder for ranked, and they also have best of 3 ladder for ranked. Introducing a best of 3 ladder means you actually have 3 total games you play against your opponent, and in between those games, just kind of like battle mode, I really think you should have a sideboard. That would be massive and give such an alleviation of stress off of second dinner on these balance changes. Because let's think about it for a second. Imagine the best of 3 format, or even if it's just like a battle mode, like that same structure of how battle mode works, but it's its own ranked format against random people. But in between each game, you have sideboards. Now, in Magic and in Yu-Gi-Oh! As well, sideboards consist of 15 cards, and I think it works nice for Magic in that sense, being a 60-card deck with a 15-card sideboard. That's a quarter of your potential deck. So I would propose in Marvel Snap, you have a 12-card deck like normal, and then a 4-card sideboard, which allows you to switch in cards based on what your opponents are playing in those matchups on the ranked ladder for best of 3. So this is how I imagine it working. Game 1, you play your opponent, and then you go ahead and notice, hey, they're playing a Deadpool deck or a Destroy deck in general. I'm going to want to bring in my Cosmo and Armor that I have as my 4-card sideboard after this game. Let's say you sneak out the win on game 1, or even if you lose, it doesn't matter. You're bringing in counter cards to stop that deck in some way, shape, or form. And then you can kind of go back and forth from there. These will be longer games, but the introduction of the sideboard would allow games to have more counterplay to them. A big problem with a lot of cards is that, yes, technically speaking, sure, you can get countered by a Cosmo, or you can, always Shang-Chi, the Red Skull, that kind of thing, right? But not every deck is playing Cosmo and Shang-Chi. With a sideboard, you can actually have those as a backup plan just in case you run into them. And I think this will actually make it so balances don't have to be so hard-hitting for these reworks and these changes, and everyone won't be screaming at the top of their lungs, ban this card, rework this card, whatever the case may be. By having a best of 3, you alleviate some of that pain from players because you give them a fair chance of actually competing against these decks they so vehemently think are broken beyond repair. But that's my idea for Marvel Snap. I really think that's the way to move forward. I really think having a separate best of 1 ladder and a best of 3 ladder, with the best of 3 ladder acting the same way as battle mode does, with the shoe-in of having a 4-card sideboard between those games, would change the entire landscape of balancing for Marvel Snap and make it so much better. This will still allow people to play their best of 1 laddering just like it is normally, and that's going to stay the same. People can play Marvel Snap as it was originally intended, but then you have a separate ranked ladder to change how cards work there. Now, in all fairness, when it comes to best of 1 and best of 3, there might need to be ban lists or separate balance change lists. We do see that in Magic. Not the balance changes, but the actual ban lists themselves. There are several cards banned in best of 1 on Magic Arena where they are not banned in best of 3 just because of the nature of the swinginess of best of 1 promotes. You don't have a sideboard, you don't have ways to counter those cards, so the best way to balance that card, even though it's not fundamentally broken in the way the game works in a best of 3 mode, it is in a best of 1 mode because you don't have the counterplay to it. If they got it, and they win. So I think that might be a nice way to go. Have a ban list for best of 1 and best of 3, and then you should probably balance change around best of 3, your battle mode, premier mode, because that's going to be the mode and is the mode being used right now, of course, because that's the only way we can play friendlies. But any of these big streaming events that you've seen so far, like Kawa had one with the $1,000 New York one with all these different streamers going head to head for a tournament, that's the structure that we're going to watch. That's the structure that pro players, when we get to that point, are going to be using. So let's roll with that as the way to balance Marvel Snap around it, and then balance best of 1 separately from that. So let me know what you guys think. Let me know down in the comment section below. Do you think this is a good idea to have separate best of 1 and best of 3 formats where you actually have a sideboard and things like that to help counterbalance the way that these cards function and the counterplay to them? And even the idea of having entirely separate formats altogether, being pool 1 only, pool 2 only, etc., etc., etc. Let me know your ideas down below. I really want to know. I really want to see this game thrive and be successful. And the way that it is right now with the constant discourse of this hate for different cards and wanting to nerf them is getting a little bit old, unfortunately, and I don't want to see the game lose some steam because people hate certain cards so much. Of course, that's a vocal minority. I don't think that's necessarily going to happen, but it's always in the back of my mind as someone that loves this game so much and have seen it happen with other games in the past. But of course, thank you guys for watching. Let me know what you think, and I'll see you guys later. See you.